Hello everyone. This video is a recording of an absolutely fabulous dive that I did on a coral reef in the Gulf of Mexico. A beautiful day, crystal clear waters, 100 feet visibility, and we saw thousands of fish down there. We got close to many, including a moray eel, some damselfish, a cowfish, a fireworm, to name just a few. Also in this video, this is a 2-for-1 because my buddy, my diving buddy, also videoed most of the dive, so I've combined the views from both of our cameras into one, giving a view of the same reef from both of our viewpoints at the same time. With that, let's jump in.
And so it begins. That's the MV Fling behind me, and there's my buddy Ken jumping off. He's behind me this time. He's usually in front, but because I usually take ages to get ready, but he's ready. And so we begin the dive on East Flower Garden Banks. Crystal clear water at the surface, around 78 degrees. Lovely on top. Here we are heading down. And you can see my buddy Ken there starting his camera up. But meanwhile, where are we? If we zoom in a little bit while Ken starts his videoing at the bottom there, I've included it. You can see that we started off from Freeport the previous day aboard the Fling. You can see her moored up if we zoom in a little more closely. Right about there. And we boarded her around 7 p.m. and then set off around 9 p.m. Went overnight and arrived the Saturday morning. This is the day after that. We did 5 days on the Saturday. This is the Sunday morning. So around 120 miles off of the coast of Freeport in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. And this was the 7th dive of a 3-day trip. And the 3rd time we had done this particular reef on East Flower Garden Banks. And I'm going to include my buddy Ken's video in the top left up there for the majority of this dive, because it adds an additional perspective to this same reef. We stayed close by to one another, of course, the majority of the time, so we got each other a little bit on the videoing each other. There we go, 63 feet down. I think the maximum of this was around 75 feet, but just lots and lots of life. You see lots of beautiful coral there. And it's a lot lighter at this on this particular dive than the previous one, which was at 8 o'clock in the morning, first one of the day. This one, after a 2-hour surface interval and a very large and absolutely delicious breakfast, was our 2nd dive of the day. And like I say earlier, the last one on this reef, on Flower Gardens. Bright and sunny up top, as you saw when we jumped in. Absolutely beautiful May day over the Memorial Day weekend in May 2023. Got very lucky with the weather, pretty much flat calm. You can see Ken jumping down into a sandy spot right there, looking for creatures beneath the rocks. You can see him with his camera peering through that gap whilst I hovered above him and around, looking for creatures myself. And we did see quite a few on this particular dive. So coming up, a honeycomb cowfish. We saw some 3-spot damselfish, Bermuda chub, a couple of spotted morays, a queen parrotfish, and a fireworm towards the end of the dive. And a whole array of other life that I didn't catch, I didn't able to ID. Those are just the ones that we got very close to. think there was a lionfish just hiding underneath there. Just saw its spines. There's a star coral on the right there and a brain coral on top. Lived for many hundreds of years, these organisms, and they've been battling it out on this reef, which is a natural formation rising some 500 feet from the seabed below. The maximum depth around the outside here, about 560 feet. Too deep to dive, of course, but at the top here, the top 100 feet or so, is where the majority of the reef is, and that's what we explore. There's two parts to it, the West Flower Gardens and East Flower Gardens, and we'd explored the West Flower Gardens the previous day, and then changed over to East Flower Gardens, a short boat trip away. And there were two buoys on the East Flower Gardens that we moored up on. The previous day, it had been one buoy, and then in the morning of this day, the Sunday, then we moored up overnight and slept like a baby after 5 dives the previous day, including a night dive. Oh, great barracuda in the back there, swimming about, all teeth. Saw a number of those, a bunch more actually as we came up. Like I was saying, we slept aboard the MV Fling, moored up on this reef overnight, rocked to sleep by a gentle swell, and then awoke to breakfast and the first dive, and then after a 2-hour nap after a large eggs and sausages breakfast after our first dive, and then a nap, we jumped in for this one, which was particularly great actually, because it was a lot brighter than the first dive. You see the sun was shining, it's very light. I'd had a nap, had a big breakfast. We knew what awaited us because we had dived it just a couple of hours previously. A little more life, and also knowing this was the last one of this reef made us want to make the most of it for this trip, because the dives after this were on a different part. Oh, quick selfie by my buddy there. Can't have too many of those, obviously. We grabbed another one towards the end there. Meanwhile, I'm grabbing a close-up of some fire coral right there. And some brain coral. Looking absolutely beautiful. My buddy Ken indicating that he can see all the way through some of these rock formations. You can see me in the top left. He caught me a little bit. We're both using the same camera for this part of the dive, GoPro 11, set to the same settings actually, a UHD resolution, 60 frames a second. And I've adjusted the video for color, boosted the reds. That's why when I shine my light right there, the light looks a little red compared to everything else. That's actually, oh, there is a very cute honeycomb cowfish coming to view. Absolutely adorable. And a 3-spot damselfish. Not too pleased to see me on his part of the reef. Had a close encounter with him a little bit later, I think. He was equally displeased to see me back. An absolutely lovely dive this, a very pleasant float. A Bermuda chub passing by. You can see there where the chub is swimming around, where the mooring is anchored, permanently fixed, concreted in. No anchors allowed here, no commercial fishing either. It's a protected area. So the MV Fling moored up to a permanent buoy that was off of that rope there, which also was a convenient place to come down. Oh, there's that damselfish who's again wondering why I've come back to annoy him. Definitely rather I moved along. See some other divers there. My buddy Ken was right behind me at this point, I think. Around 30 or so of us on this particular trip. So the boat was full, maximum accommodation for the MV Fling. Oh, there's my buddy. He's in front of me, slightly to the left, just ahead. So we followed each other around, staying quite close to where that buoy is anchored to make it easy to find our way back. Without the help of that reference point, it can be easy to get lost here. Now, there was a line laid, a reel, which we might be able to see, laid by the dive masters earlier in that day for 100 feet or so from that buoy to give us a nice easy route to follow, help us not get lost, and then return back as well. So I think we followed that a little bit. Mostly it was just exploring in and out all these beautiful corals which covered just every rock, as you can see the reel in the background there briefly. Laid there temporarily, carefully between a few of the rocks by the dive masters, as I say, to help us navigate. Absolutely beautiful coral there on the right, and huge. I enjoy getting close to them and just admiring how perfect they look. The light from my flashlight, a little red coloured because I've allowed for the lack of red on the rest of the lighting, making my flashlight, which would look normal, it didn't look red during the dive, but looks red in the video because I've boosted the reds all up to try and return some of the colour. Fairly warm this dive. Oh, there's Brian, another member of the club that went on this particular trip, which is the Central Houston Underwater Mariners, the CHUM. So around 11 of us, I think, went on this trip out of the 30 or so that were booked. Brian being another, my buddy being another as well. Always fun when you can go with friends. Bottom temperature was quite warm, like I was saying, around 78 or so towards the bottom, so quite pleasant. Still need a wetsuit. I would have been inclined to wear a 5mm, many did. I was actually wearing a dry suit for this whole trip, not wishing to get cold. Mine is a waterproof brand, and I wore their thin Body X undergarments underneath it, and which was not bulky at all, just enough to keep the chill off while I was under there for, in this case, we had 46 minutes underwater. Oh, there's a spotted moray lurking. There's that line I mentioned that dive masters had laid out from that buoy behind us in this case. So many fish, you can see them in the background there. I hope they come out of this video, but there were so many in the far distance, and then all these little ones like that little guy living in amongst all the coral, hiding, swimming about. Much of it wouldn't let us get too close. The sound of our breathing would frighten them off. So I tried to breathe slowly so we could get a little closer. Just being very careful not to touch the coral here. It's protected and quite delicate. Just trying to get the camera as close as I safely could. Get a nice view of this whilst hovering above. Quite tricky in a dry suit. Got some additional pieces to use to maintain buoyancy, additional valves to maintain, air to incorporate, including the BCD, which we'd normally wear, even without the dry suit. So that in combination made it a little trickier, but still very glad of it for the warmth actually on this dive. This whole trip, in fact, very, very comfy. Didn't need to wear gloves, but did find the need to wear a thin 3mm equivalent headwear, keep my head cool, warm. Not everyone did. Not everyone feels the cold as much as I do, but yeah, I don't like the cold, so prefer wearing a dry suit. So this was another nitrox dive, meaning that's the gas air mix that my buddy and I were breathing. That's where most of the folks, not all, but most of the folks on this particular trip. The nitrox being regular air with additional oxygen added to it, using equipment that's actually on the boat. So they mix it and pressurize our tanks for us while we're on those 2-hour surface intervals between dives up to 3,000 psi or so. At this point I thought that was a crab. I was calling my buddy Ken, trying to attract his attention. Turns out as I got closer, it was not. I moved on as soon as I realized. You can see the difference in the view being from my buddy a little higher up, for me being closer down. Easier to see the colors a little closer, particularly with the aid of the flashlight. Yeah, this dive, my nitrox mix was 28%, so normal air is 21%. Added an extra 7% of oxygen to extend the no deco times, reduce the amount of nitrogen ingested, which I prefer anyway. Makes me less tired, as well as longer dives. Quick peek at my computer there, 66 feet down and 16 minutes in. I think we hit a maximum of only a little bit deeper than that. Probably when I was down on the sand looking at an eel a bit later. So not very deep at all. So much beautiful coral to look at, and so many fish living in it. Remnants of something stuck in the concrete there. Never did determine quite what that was. Perhaps an old mooring. Previous times they do wear out, those permanent moorings for the ship. Have to be replaced occasionally. I see my buddy Ken playing his torch over some of the coral there. Looks his light looks red. It's not red in reality. It's just that the colors of his flashlight are normal, but the surrounding water lacks red, so I've enhanced the video to add in some red, which makes his light look red. And that's the same damselfish who's again wondering why I'm still here. Definitely did not want me around. At this point you can see my buddy Ken was also curious around that artifact that was fixed to the rock there. See him having a look. See if we can see what it was. Meanwhile, I was looking under some of the rocks here, looking for any critters hiding down in amongst the sandbanks. Close up, some of the coral there. I was very curious to see if I could see underneath those rocks. So I dropped down onto the sand to see if I could see anything under there. Didn't see anyone hiding. It's not to say they weren't there, just not visible at the minute. Another peek at my computer, 64 feet deep there, currently 24 minutes into the dive. And who do I see coming nearest right there? A very beautiful queen angelfish chowing down on some of the nearby food. Looking absolutely stunningly beautiful, I can agree. And you can see I spotted a spotted moray in his hole down there. You can see me from the view of my buddy up top as well, coming in on the sandbank to get as close as I dared to him. Wasn't too thrilled to see me. Eyeing me warily and showing me his teeth. So at this point, we're getting to the end of the footage that my buddy captured. His camera was nearly done, and there it is. In fact, it's probably overheated. Perhaps the battery ran out. I think it overheated, which is a feature of the GoPro 11 and 10 series in water this deep when videoing continuously at 60 frames a second in UHD resolutions. Unfortunately, I get around this myself by having two cameras with me, so when the first overheats, I simply pull out the second in order to not miss any of the dive. And a surprise swim by here by a barjack that shot by. And just coming into view at the bottom there, queen parrotfish, one of my absolute favourite fish I've seen here. Seen them many times here on these reefs. Very, very pretty. strong jaws, parrot-like in fact, chowing down on the growth around. Sometimes they let me get reasonably close, like this one. See him eating away, nibbling. And just on that outcrop ahead, a fireworm. We're going to get quite close to this particular one, but I was careful not to get too close. Yeah, there he is. See him moving about. They do make a nasty sting if you touch them with your bare hands, hence the name. So okay to get close, but definitely don't want to actually come into contact with that little guy. Usually up to 10 centimeters wide, but they can get up to 35 centimeters, these fireworms, so pretty big. Alrighty, so we come up towards the ends of our dive now. As I could hear my buddy. I had 1,000 psi air left, so plenty, but I could hear my buddy's computer beeping. So that was it for this dive. Time for a quick selfie, my buddy and I. Grab hold so we get a nice selfie picture here. Please don't forget, just like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.